Hello, everyone. Today we're going to crochet the granny square hat. We will take this pinky one for an example. Let's start with the granny square first. The first round is made with double crochet stitches. The second round uses cluster stitches. And the third round also uses cluster stitches. The fourth and fifth rounds are made up of double crochet and single crochet stitches. Let's begin with the first round. To start, we will create a magic ring. Hold the blue yarn with your hand and wrap it around your finger twice to form 2 rings. Roll the yarn through your little finger and transfer the 2 rings to your other hand. Hold the bottom of the rings tightly to secure them in place. Take out the 3.5 mm crochet hook and insert it into the large hole. Hook the thread out. Now, you should see a loop on the crochet hook. Then, yarn over and pull the yarn through the loop on the hook. You'll see a V-shaped stitch forming. This is our first chain stitch. Yarn over again and pull the thread through the loop on the hook. Here forms the second chain stitch. Next, we will crochet 16 double crochet stitches. Yarn over, so there are 2 loops on the crochet hook, then insert the hook into the big hole and hook out with yarn. Now, there are 3 loops on the crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook, leaving 2 loops still on the crochet hook. Yarn over again and pull through the remaining 2 loops at once, completing our first double crochet stitch. We can see there is a V shape formed. Stretch out the loop and place a marker in the first V stitch to mark the beginning of the round. We will crochet the remaining 15 double crochet stitches using the same method. Let me demonstrate it once more. With the second double crochet stitch completed, repeat to crochet the remaining 14 double crochet stitches. After finishing, pull out the loop, then count the stitches to ensure there are 16 V-shaped stitches. Then, we move these stitches closer and find the short tail of the yarn. Gently pull on it to locate the moving loop. Then pull this loop in the opposite direction until the hole in the center gets smaller. Finally, pull the short tail until the loop closes completely. Put the hook back into the loop, tighten the loop. Remove the stitch marker and insert the crochet hook into the marked stitch. Place the reserved yarn tail onto the hook. Then yarn over the hook and pull through the stitch. Next, pull this loop through the loop on the hook. This completes 1 slip stitch. Tighten the loop. You will observe a tiny V-shaped stitch, which doesn't count in the total number of stitches. Leaving a tail of 2 to 4 inches, cut the yarn and pull out the loop. Next, take out the green yarn and leave a tail of 2 inches, then tie a knot. Let's find where to start crocheting. Take the crocheted piece and locate the stitch where we just made the slip stitch, which is where the tiny V-shaped stitch formed. Insert hook into this stitch. Place the yarn tails over the hook. Put the green loop on the hook. Press the green yarn tail with the blue yarn tails. And pull the loop out. Let's start the second round, which consists of cluster stitches. First, we crochet 2 chain stitches. Next, we crochet 2 incomplete double crochet stitches. Yarn over, insert the hook into the same stitch. And pull out a loop. Now we have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. This complete the incomplete double crochet. Repeat the above steps to crochet the second incomplete double crochet stitch. Now, there are 3 loops on the hook. We have 2 incomplete double crochet stitches and 2 chain stitches. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops at once. This completes the first cluster stitch. In each of the following stitches, we need to crochet 1 cluster stitch. We need a total of 16 cluster stitches, with 2 chain stitches between each cluster stitch. So, let's crochet 2 chain stitches now. Place a marker on the first V-shaped cluster stitch. Now, let's crochet the second cluster stitch by working 3 incomplete double crochet stitches into the next stitch. Place the yarn tails over the hook so they can be hidden within the stitches while crocheting. The first incomplete double crochet stitch. The second incomplete double crochet stitch. And the third incomplete double crochet stitch. We can see that in the first cluster stitch, the first stitch is substituted by 2 chain stitches instead of an incomplete double crochet stitch. The second cluster stitch is made up of 3 incomplete double crochet stitches. All the following cluster stitches will be like the second one. Let's continue. Yarn over, hook through all 4 loops, then make 2 chain stitches. Next, we copy the second cluster stitch and crochet 14 more stitches to complete the second round. Cut off the yarn tails. Please remember that each cluster stitch is followed by 2 chain stitches. After completing the last 2 chain stitches, make a slip stitch into the marked stitch. Cut the yarn and pull it out. Take out the pink yarn and leave a tail of 2 inches, then tie a knot. Let's look at this piece. The combination of the cluster stitches and the 2 chain stitches has created these large holes. These are the points where we will insert the cluster stitches for the third round. The starting point for the first cluster stitch of the third round is in the hole between the first and second cluster stitches of the second round. Put the tail over the hook. Then, place the pink loop onto the hook. And pull the loop through the hole. Press the pink tail with the green yarn tail. Crochet 2 chain stitches. Then crochet 3 incomplete double crochet stitches into this gap. Yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on the hook at once. Pin a marker at the first stitch. Next, crochet 2 chain stitches. After that, crochet a cluster stitch by working 4 incomplete double crochet stitches into the second hole. With 5 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 5 loops at once. Then crochet 2 chain stitches. Cut off the yarn tails. Next, repeat the crochet pattern of the second group 14 more times until you reach the end of this round. Remove the marker and make a slip stitch into the first stitch to close this round. Cut the yarn. For the 4th and 5th rounds, we will use black yarn. In the 4th round, we will crochet into the large holes from the 3rd round. In each hole, crochet 3 double crochet stitches. At each of the 4 corners, crochet 3 double crochet stitches, 3 chain stitches, and then another 3 double crochet stitches. In the 5th round, because the brim of the hat is small at the top and large at the bottom, we will crochet 3 single crochet stitches at the top 2 corners and 5 single crochet stitches at the bottom corners. To make it easier to see the stitches clearly, we will demonstrate using a light colored yarn. Take out the yarn and leave a tail of 2 inches, then tie a knot. Here is the position to start. Insert the hook into the first hole, place the loop onto the hook, and pull it through the loop. Then crochet 3 chain stitches. We will crochet 3 double crochet stitches into this hole. Yarn over, insert the hook into the big hole, and pull up a loop. There will be 3 loops on the crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on the crochet hook. Yarn over again and pull through the remaining 2 loops at once, completing our first double crochet stitch. We place a marker in the first stitch of the double crochet. Next, crochet 2 more double crochet stitches into this hole. Then, crochet 3 double crochet stitches into the next hole. Cut off the yarn tails. Now, let's crochet the third set of 3 double crochet stitches. At the fourth set, we reach the first corner of the square. In this hole, we crochet 3 double crochet stitches, 3 chain stitches, and then another 3 double crochets. This pattern forms one group. We will continue crocheting the pattern group 3 more times. After complete the last corner, remove the marker and make a slip stitch into the marked stitch to close this round. Next, for the 5th round, put single crochet in each stitch. Crochet 3 single crochets at the first and second corners, and 5 single crochets at the third and fourth corners. Since we are using the same color as the previous round, there is no need to cut the yarn. First, chain 1, insert the hook into the stitch and pull out the yarn. Yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Place a marker on the first made single crochet stitch. Next, crochet a single crochet in each stitch, making a total of 13 single crochets. After finishing the 13 single crochets, we've reached the first corner. In this large hole, we crochet 3 single crochets. Then we crochet 15 single crochet stitches in each stitch along this side. Now we have reached the second corner. Crochet 3 single crochets in this corner. On the next side, we will crochet 15 single crochets as well. We have now reached the large gap at the third corner. Crochet 5 single crochets here. Because we crocheted 5 single crochets here, it might get a bit crowded and could cover the next stitch we need to crochet, so don't miss this stitch. Keep crocheting 15 single crochets. In the last corner, crochet 5 single crochets. Then, crochet 3 single crochets in the next 3 stitches. Remove the marker and make a slip stitch into the first stitch to close this round. Cut off the yarn. We can see that the corners with 5 single crochets will be slightly wider. This side is for crocheting the hat brim, while the other side is for the top of the hat. We repeat the above method to crochet a total of 4 granny squares. We position the corners with 3 single crochets facing upward and the corners with 5 single crochets facing downward. You can find the yarn tails are all at the bottom left corner. Let's look at the corner. You will notice 3 single crochets at the upper corner. Locate the middle single crochet. Use a marker to pin the stitch. This is the first single crochet stitch at the corner, and this is the second single crochet stitch, which is also the middle one. Let's mark it. Then, locate the middle stitch of the other piece and use the marker to connect them together. At the bottom side, locate the third stitch of the 5 stitches at the corner using the same method. Use the stitch marker to connect the adjacent piece at the same position. Then, we use the same method to connect the remaining pieces. Flip the piece over, and we'll start sewing them together at the back side. Cut about 16 inches length of black yarn and tie a knot. Thread the needle through the outer half of the marked bottom stitches. Then, pass the needle through the loop we just created. Pull it all the way through, tighten the yarn tail to narrow the loop, and secure it in place. Next, we sew each corresponding stitch together until we reach the end. Remove the stitch marker at the top, sew the corresponding stitches together, make an extra stitch at the same position, and then tie a knot. Then, weave the yarn into the nearby stitches and cut off the excess yarn. We use the same method to sew the other granny squares together, connecting them into a ring. After completing, the right side will look like this. Next, we will crochet the top part of the hat. The top of the hat is made up of 12 rounds of single crochet and single crochet increase stitches. Starting from the first round, each round increases by 6 stitches, resulting in a total of 72 single crochet stitches by the 12th round. We will use light-colored yarn for demonstration. First, let's start with a magic ring. Hold the yarn with your hand and wrap it around your finger twice to form 2 rings. Transfer them to your other hand and hold the bottom of the rings tightly to secure them in place. Insert the hook, pull a loop through the ring, and then crochet a chain stitch. Next, we crochet 6 single crochet stitches into the magic ring. Insert the hook into the hole and pull out the yarn, leaving 2 loops on the hook. Then, yarn over and pull through both loops at once. This forms a V-shaped stitch, which is your first single crochet stitch. Stretch out the loop and place a stitch marker in the first V-shaped stitch to mark the beginning of the round. Using the same method, crochet the remaining 5 single crochet stitches. After finishing, pull out the loop and count to ensure there are 6 single crochet stitches. Then, we move the stitches together and find the short tail of the yarn. Gently pull on it to locate the moving loop. Then pull this loop in the opposite direction until the hole in the center gets smaller. Finally, pull the tail until the loop closes completely. Then, put the hook back into the loop, tighten it, and make a slip stitch into the first stitch to close the circle. The first round of crochet is finished. Now, we begin the second round, where each stitch will have 2 single crochet stitches. First, crochet a chain to begin. Crochet the first single crochet stitch into the same stitch where we just made the slip stitch. Remember to place the yarn tail over the hook while crocheting. This will help hide the tail. Stretch out the loop and place a stitch marker in the first V-shaped stitch to mark the beginning of the round. Crochet the second single crochet stitch into the same stitch. Crocheting 2 single crochet stitches into one stitch is called an increase. Next, crochet 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch around. After finishing crocheting, count to confirm there are 12 stitches. Then, remove the stitch marker and make a slip stitch to close the round. Next, for the third round, crochet 1 single crochet, then an increase. Repeat this pattern 6 times around. We will start with a turning chain in each round. Crochet 1 single crochet stitch into the first stitch. And pin a marker to the stitch. Then crochet an increase, which is 2 single crochet stitches into the second stitch. After that, continue with 1 single crochet, then a single crochet increase. Repeating this pattern 5 more times. After finishing, close the third round by making a slip stitch into the first stitch. At the end of the third round, there should be a total of 18 V-shaped stitches. Crochet a turning chain to start the fourth round. In the fourth round, crochet 1 single crochet, then an increase followed by 1 single crochet. Repeat this pattern in groups 6 times. Crochet the first single crochet stitch and place a stitch marker in it. Then crochet an increase in the second stitch. Crochet a single crochet stitch in the third stitch. Next, repeat the above combination of stitches 5 more times. Make a slip stitch to close the fourth round. In the fifth round, crochet 3 single crochets, then make an increase. Repeat this pattern for a total of 6 times. Start with a turning chain. Make a single crochet in the first stitch. Mark the first made stitch. Continue to crochet single crochets in the next 2 stitches. In the fourth stitch, make a single crochet increase. Our first set of stitches is complete. Repeat this pattern for the remaining 5 sets. When finished the last stitch, make a slip stitch in the marked stitch. After completing the 5th round, you should have 30 stitches. Following the instruction, continue crocheting until the 12th row. Each round will increase by 6 stitches compared to the previous round. After finishing the crochet, leave a 40 inches tail of yarn before cutting it. This remaining yarn tail will be used to sew the granny squares together. The connection points between the granny squares count as 1 stitch. There are 4 connecting points in total around each granny square. Let's begin at any of the connection points. Insert the needle through the outer half of the first single crochet at the top of the hat, then pass it through the stitches of the connecting part. Not to pull the yarn too tightly, as this can cause the hat to lose its shape. However, avoid making it too loose as well. Next, sew the second stitch by skipping the large gap in the connecting part and stitching directly into the outer stitches of the next single crochets. We've sewn one side of the granny square. Now, at the connection point, you'll notice two large holes on either side where the granny squares were connected. We'll skip these holes and connect directly at the connection point. Let me continue demonstrating. Insert the needle through the outer half of the stitch at the top of the hat. Then through the connection point. Let's continue by connecting the remaining stitches. Now that we've sewn up to the first stitch, sew one more time and then tie a knot. Hide the yarn tail inside the stitches on the back side. On the front side, you'll see two visible sewing lines where the pieces are stitched together. Let's begin crocheting the hat brim. The total stitch count at the bottom, including the connecting point, is 80 stitches. We'll start from the connecting point. Grab the black yarn and tie a single knot. Place the loop onto the crochet hook and pull the loop through the connecting point. Make a chain. Then crochet a single crochet stitch into the same stitch. Pin a marker here. We'll single crochet along the edge of the granny square, working into the outer loops of the single crochet stitches. After finishing the crochet, count to ensure there are 80 single crochet stitches. Then, remove the stitch marker and make a slip stitch. Next, for the second round, crochet 7 single crochets, followed by 1 single crochet increase. Repeat this pattern 10 times. For this round, crochet into the whole V stitch all the way around. First, make a chain stitch, then crochet 7 single crochet stitches. At the 8th stitch, crochet 2 single crochets. The first group is complete. Repeat the above stitch pattern until the end. After finishing the second round, proceed with a slip stitch. There should be 90 stitches in total. Next, we'll proceed with the third round. The pattern for this round is 4 single crochets, followed by 1 single crochet increase, and then another 4 single crochets. Repeat this pattern 10 times. First, make a chain stitch, then crochet 4 single crochets. Crochet 1 single crochet increase in the 5th stitch. Next, crochet 4 single crochets again. Continue this pattern until the end. Make a slip stitch to close the third round. There should be 100 stitches after this round. Continue following the above method and instructions, increasing the stitch count in each row, until you reach the 8th round. After completing the 8th round, there should be 150 stitches. Cut the yarn. The main body of the hat is now finished. Use the yarn needle to hide the yarn tail and the stitches on the back of the hat. Now we'll start sewing the pink fluffy yarn around the top of the hat. You'll notice there are half of the stitches left around the edge. We'll attach the fluffy yarn into these stitches. Next, we'll sew along the vertical lines and then the horizontal lines of the granny squares. There are a total of 5 sets of lines around the hat. Finally, we'll sew along the outer half of the stitches on the hat brim. Let's demonstrate. Take 40 inches of pink fluffy yarn and thread it through a yarn needle. Insert the needle into any half stitch along the top edge, and pull the yarn through, leaving a tail of about 3 inches. Continue sewing. When sewing, insert the needle from bottom to top and pull it through. After pulling through, tidy up the loops so that the looped parts face inward. After the final stitch, insert the needle to the back side of the work. Tie a knot. And then hide the yarn tail within the stitches on the back. Thread the tail through to the back and hide it by weaving it into the back stitches. Next, take out a 20 inches pink fluffy thread to sew the side part. Find the topmost stitch, insert the needle, and then sew along the edge stitch by stitch from top to bottom. After finishing the last stitch, hide the yarn end at the back by knotting it. Then, repeat the same method to sew the edges of the other granny squares. After finishing the granny square part, we'll move on to sewing the brim. Cut a 47 inches thread, then start matching and sewing the outer loops one by one. Make a knot and then hide the yarn tails into the sides. The fuzzy hat is finished.